Good morning, it's Dave at ATI Watch Reviews. Please smash that like button. Please smash that subscribe button for more awesome watch content. Little wristwatch check. Got the one and only GG B100 from Casio Mudmaster. It's a Gshock. Absolute behemoth, my favourite beta watch at the minute. And interestingly, I've got two very interesting and similar looking actually, but they are a completely different brand. These are Smael, which is, in my honest opinion, if it is pronounced correctly as I've just done, it is a terrible watch name. I'm sorry, it is. In English, it doesn't translate correctly. It's just, it's a weird word to say. We would not typically think of a watch called Smael, but anyway, or Smael, or however you pronounce it. Anyway, these are a Chinese watch manufacturer that produce homages, in particular to the Gshocks, and in particular actually to the Mudmaster line. That's a Casio watch brand, a Casio watch line of watches that comes under the Gshocks, but they're typically a bit more expensive than the entry-level Gshocks. Now Smael have produced not only homages, because these are homaging the Mudmaster line of Casio watches, but they are homaging them at a super cheap price, at an ultra cheap, like, I don't know, real watches that have the functionality of this. For the price they do them at, it is pretty incredible, because the watch on my left, which I've reviewed previously, is the 1545, SL 1545, and I've had this for 2 years now, around about. And the watch on my right I've just picked up, and that's the 1921, that's the SL 1921. And the 1545 homages Casio's GWG 1000, which is a 650 quid or 660 quid, I believe, at the time when it came out. The first Mudmaster came out 7 years ago in 2015, and that is what this watch is based upon in terms of the looks. That is an unbelievable, iconic, amazing watch from Casio that is the most iconic Mudmaster that's ever been produced, and it is the first one, I believe, that was produced. Now, they've homaged that watch that's about 600 odd quid. Don't get me wrong, you can get them in deals for cheaper, but they've homaged it, and I paid at the time, I believe, 7 to 8 quid I paid. Now that is unbelievable for this homage to it. Okay? Doesn't have half the features, is way cheaper, is way worse quality, but I only paid 7 quid for it. On the one on my right, the 1921, it actually does homage the one on my wrist, which is a 325 quid Mudmaster with quad sensors, with extreme mud and shock resist, with mission logs and Bluetooth time synchronization. Of course, this watch doesn't have any of that. So the question is, the basic question I'm going to tell you in this video is, should you be buying Gshock homage watches? That's what I'm basically going to be telling you. Or said another way, should you be buying these Smael watches? And I think for some people, there is two main reasons as to why you would buy these watches, okay? And the first reason why you would buy it is if you wanted the looks, not functionality, the looks alone of the real Gshock Casio Mudmasters, but you didn't want to spend a significant amount of money. If you had, I'm sure most people could afford to spend just 10 quid on a watch. You know, most people would expect to pay, I believe, about 100 quid on a watch generally. I mean, for a luxury one, they would expect to pay up to maybe 500 to £1,000, and it's debatable that you can buy a luxury watch for that, because Rolexes and all that cost a lot more, cost thousands and thousands. But I think most people who think, oh, I'm going to buy a nice watch, might spend up to 500 quid. But obviously there is a small percentage of people out there that are willing and have always been willing and have more money than other people because of the economic system and the inequality in our society. and various other reasons, that they can afford to spend thousands and thousands, and they would spend that on a watch like a Rolex or whatever. But for most people, I think that if you said to them, what would you spend on a watch? I think that most of them would say, well, I'll spend about 100 quid on a daily watch and maybe 500 quid on a nicer watch, maybe. Now, 10 quid is not really a lot of money. It is cheap. And for what you're getting with these watches, it is quite interesting that they've been able to do it for so ultra cheap. And this watch has lasted for 2 years, and I have swam with it and I have put it in the shower. I've checked that the water resistance, at least to the extent that this channel could do without getting special equipment or paying for it externally. I have tested that there is some water resistance there and it is okay. I haven't done on this one yet, but again, let's pretend that now these have 50 meter water resist. Yep, 580. Yeah, they do. It's 50 meters. I've checked it before. Yeah. So a real Gshock will have 200 meters as standard across the whole range. Generally, they have 200 meters. Some are actually divers approved 200, like the Frogman. These are on the Casio Gshocks, which these are not. These are homages. These are Smael. So on the Smaels, why would you buy these watches? Well, if you wanted the looks of a real Casio Gshock Mudmaster, which have a unique, iconic look that no other watches really do other than homages to them, then I would say, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, that is definitely one reason. Because the Casio Mudmasters have a unique look that very few watches out there look like. And these Smaels are homages, and they've tried to make it quite close. And I think this one in particular does look like the one that it's based upon. And I think, someone walking past you on your wrist might think, oh, that's a Gshock, that's a Mudmaster, when it's of course not. But if you want the looks alone, that is one reason. If you don't care about all the functionality, you don't care about 200 meter water resist, Bluetooth timekeeping, radio timekeeping, solar power, if you don't care about all those things, the shock resistant, then by all means you can get these for that. Okay, just on looks alone, because people will think, oh, that's an interesting watch. That's like a nice sports watch. That's what they might think. Basically, that's a nice Casio watch, when it's not really, but that's what they possibly would think. Number two, the second reason why you might buy them, and this is another interesting one, would be if you've never ever worn a Mudmaster before, because they are huge watches, 20 mil thick, 50 odd mil cases, some of them. This is a bit smaller, big thick bits of plastic and carbon fiber resin in there. If you've got small wrists of say 6 and a bit inch, less than 6.5 inches, you might think, well, I don't know if I buy a Casio Mudmaster, I don't know if that's actually going to fit my wrist, and it might be too bulky and uncomfortable, and I don't want to spend 600 quid on a GWG 1000 or the GWG 2000 that's out this year, that is another souped up Mudmaster that Casio have made, that I will be reviewing on this channel shortly. That is a behemoth of a watch, that is 660 quid, I believe, RRP. If you think, well, I don't want to pay that for a watch, or this, which is 325 brand new, you might say, well, I'll pay 7 quid or 11 quid or even 15 quid, because I've seen some sites selling them for that much, and I'll just get the feel of them on the wrist, and I'll see how it feels. Because it is true that the real Gshock Mudmasters are heavier than these. I think the GWG 1000 is going to be about 120 grams. This is only going to be probably about 100 grams or 90 odd grams maybe. And this one is definitely lighter than the one I've got on my wrist. But that's not to say it's comfier, but it is lighter. So those are the two main reasons why you'd want to buy these watches. The third category would be, again, with them being so cheap, 10 quid, okay? would be, if you just want a watch to just take to the gym, to smack about a bit, that has a bit of water resistance, that's digital, that you don't want to damage any of your other watches, then, and you only want to spend a tiny amount on it, then by all means you can get one of these. Because I have worn this, I've not worn it significantly, but I have wore it occasionally for 2 years, okay? Now, what I would say don't buy these watches for, if you had a budget of say 50 quid to 100 quid, I would recommend a real Casio Gshock, but not a Mudmaster, because that's out the price range, unless you're lucky and get a second-hand one off eBay possibly. But gent that's like really scratched up, and that's not what you want in my opinion. If you want just a kind of beta watch, then I would recommend something like the GA100 or the GD100 or some Casio Gshock that's below 100 quid. And I paid, I believe, 50 odd quid on Amazon about 4 or 5 years ago for the GD100, or it was the GA100. Now it's probably gone up with inflation. You're probably looking at more closer to 100 quid or closer to 90 quid. But fundamentally, I would much rather spend that, and if your budget was just 50 to 100 quid on a beta watch, because those watches have a superior battery, have a superior shock resistance, they are constructed way better, the bands are better, the tangs and buckles are better on the real G-Shocks, and the water resistance is a true 200 meter, so you could go swimming and diving with them. Whereas with these, the build quality is nowhere near as good. The straps are poorer, even though they are not totally uncomfortable. They are a worse resin. The tangs and buckles are fairly terrible. They're way too stiff. They don't properly engage. And even on some cheaper G-Shocks, you can get solar, and you can get maybe a little bit more than 100 quid, but you can get solar batteries. So I would only recommend getting these Smaels if you want to homage the Mudmaster, and you don't want to spend that kind of money, or you want to feel how one would fit on the wrist before spending serious money, because hundreds of pounds on a watch to a lot of people is serious money. Before buying a Casio Gshock Mudmaster. I'll just put these on my wrist now and show you. They've definitely got the look of a Mudmaster, but they are not Mudmasters, they are Smael's Homages. So the 1921 1545, which I have previously reviewed, but these are dirt cheap watches. You're not going to get watches much cheaper than this. And to be fair to them, to Smael, and these buckles drive me insane. Right, okay. To be fair to them, the dials are not bad. I mean, this one is a bit more, because the colours are a bit, over the top. It is more blingy and looks a bit, but to be fair, the negative dials are not terrible. If you buy a real Casio watch, a lot of the low energy negative dials, because they are kind of low energy, the technology that they use, these like TN panels, I think a lot of them have got them. They have poor legibility, unfortunately. So even if you buy a Casio Gshock on some of the cheaper ones, they have poor legibility on the negatives. These ones also have poor legibility, but it's not absolutely terrible. You're getting an analog digital dial with both of them. You're getting alarm, chronograph functionality, stopwatch, basic functionality with a 50 meter water resist for, in a deal, you might even be able to get it less than a tenner. That is pretty insane. But I think for most of my viewers, the reason why you'd want to get one is basically to see how it would fit on the wrist, this style of watch, so that you can then judge how a real Casio Mudmaster would fit on the would feel on the wrist. Even though it's not a one-to-one, obviously it's not. They do feel different. I would say in some ways the Casios are comfier because the straps are better. They feel better on the wrist. Even though these are lighter, I think, because they don't contain the same functionality, obviously, and they're not built in the same manner. They're not built to withstand the shock that the Casios can. So it's an interesting one, but you know, if these were 50 quid, I would say no, get the Casio. But for just a tenner, you know, and by the way, there's an affiliate link down below. I make a tiny amount of commission at no extra cost to you. If you did have 10 quid to burn, I don't recommend that you do that, by the way. I'm not saying you should buy these watches. Only in those conditions where you want to kind of test out. I mean, you could always buy, you always get a 14-day cooling off period when you buy from, you know, a reputable seller in England, buying a Casio watch. Online, I think you get a 14-day cooling off period, so you could always send it back. But if you did use the watch, I'm not talking about these Smaels. Obviously, buying them on AliExpress, I don't think you'll get that, and you're not going to want to send them back because it'll be at your cost. So you're just going to want to keep it or sell it on eBay for a tenner, basically. So it's an interesting one. They're not complete and utter junk, even though they can kind of feel like that at times. I've not had any buttons just fly off. They feel like they're, for the price, not bad in terms of build quality. They're not complete and total junk. I can assure you that, because I have had, like, years ago, my girlfriend bought some watches. I think it was off Wish.com or Boohoo or something years ago, and they were literal junk. I mean, it turned up with the buckle hanging off. I mean, they were just total junk. These are not total junk. I don't agree that they are total junk, at least not on the units I've had. They do have some functionality. They do have some element of build quality. And for the price, I think they're worth more than 10 quid. So that's my kind of 17-minute summary of it. I probably took a bit too long on that, but just thought I'd show you them there. If you did want the option. I'm sure some people are going to think, well, I would like to have a 650 quid Mudmaster, but I don't want to spend that kind of money, but I want the look and feel. Well, 10 quid, go and buy it. Go and buy it, something similar, just to see what it feels like. And then if you don't like it or you do like it, you can go and buy the Casio. So it's been Dave. Hope you enjoy this little comparison. Have a great day. Nice one.